That's not really that bad. That's
Trustee Ash.
Here.
Trustee Cahar. Chair Hoskin Sutton.
Here.
Trustee Johnson.
Here.
Vice Chair Kump.
Here.
Trustee Sanchez.
Here.
Trustee Scruggs Andrieu.
Here. All right.
Thank you, and we do have the two that are online. At this time, the purpose of this meeting is to interview Dr. Jackie Vietti as our interim president for the college. She has been here before when the college had to go through a transition. We will start with questions from the trustees. We're going to go round robin. Dr. Vietti, there's a total of 12 questions, and our two online may be able to chime in, but we're not sure. But we'll get through these 12 questions. And then we have on here that the employees may ask questions if time permits, so we will follow that. We wanted that to be on there so that there were no surprises. Employees may have questions or comments, but first the board is going to ask a total of 12 questions, and there may be others. We're going to just do round robin, and we will start with Trustee Ash.
Yeah.
Trustee Ash, if I might point out, you each have a copy of my resume at your places, along with my guiding principles as a leader.
Yeah. But excuse me, I probably should have first say, welcome, let you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we will start the questions. I know it's
Madam Chair, excuse me just a minute. Just maybe a brief point of order. We have an agenda, so are we going to approve that agenda, or I do have a comment or a question if we get a motion in a second, but anyway, are we going to?
okay. All right. I don't think we have to. Do we have to approve this agenda? We didn't for the special meeting.
Yeah, you would approve an agenda
Okay.
just like a regular meeting.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Trustee Ash. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and I have a
Wait a
question.
minute.
Just
Wait, just a second. I have a motion and a second. Is there a question?
yes, a question and a comment just for clarification. So, on item number 4, get that far on the agenda, discussion of the options that that are before the board today, or at least these two, whatever. So I did not see that we were going to be in executive session. So is that discussion going to take place in the open meeting?
The discussion will. We're trying to be transparent, and whichever way we decide, then we would, if needed, have an executive session to discuss the contract and start date and all of that.
Okay, well, just, and again, this is just me, I'm concerned that we're sort of maybe breaking, I'm all about transparency. I'm all about the transparency of, being sure that everyone understands clearly what we're doing. But it is normally not our policy or our protocol to discuss personnel matters, especially when individuals are named, if you will, in the process. And so I just want to be sure and check that is everybody going to be okay with that? Because there may be some issues that we as the employer, if you will, of this employee or these employees as we move forward, that we may be uncomfortable posing or questioning in an open forum. I don't think it would be fair for the trustees really to feel like they could speak candidly about it or whatever, or certainly might be rather uncomfortable for the candidates in that process or in that discussion. So that is the reason that I brought it up. That's the reason that I posed the issue.
Okay, and the point is well taken, and the reason I didn't consider taking that part of it, this part of it into an executive session is because it was discussed openly, was on the agenda last month, and we had a full conversation about it, and that's how we got to the point that we would have this interview. So if we didn't go into an executive session last month to discuss it, that's why it wasn't. But I'm open to whatever the trustees think we should do?
Well, again, I think a discussion about how we want to move forward, which is what we were doing at that time. Yes, we would like the opportunity to meet Dr. Jackie Vietti and talk to her and hear from her. And we had already heard from Dr. Schulte, and so, okay, the board's decided we want to move forward now and have this more formal interview and process and seek this feedback. But then we're going to get into, possible deliberations or, really detail about why we favor this individual or that one or the other. And I don't know that, again, from me, I think it deviates from our past pattern and practice, our policy and so forth, to discuss those kind of details in open session. So I certainly am just one board member, and so whatever this board votes to do or decides to do, well then I'm going along with the board.
I am not sure if I'm concurring with you, but I felt like this was a step past where we were, maybe over where we were at our last meeting, I didn't understand that this interview was to pretty much vote on whether Dr. Vietti would be our interim president or not. It seems like we were still considering Dr. Schulte, but it seems like in this it says we would be voting to have Dr. Vietti as interim president and transitioning Dr. Schulte as a strategic partner.
It has both on there. Whether or not we would have Dr. Schulte as our interim president with Dr. Vietti as a strategic partner, or whether we would just go straight with Dr. Vietti.
I see, okay.
Okay, and so I feel like we can't keep, I call it deliberating this. We've got to make a decision at some point so that we can get to actually having a national search for a president. So what's the board pleasure? Do you want the trustees who are online, did you have a comment? I don't see a place for if you raised your hand or anything. So at this point then, are you wanting to have an amendment to the agenda to have the discussion as an executive session?
Well, I wanted to hear from all of the trustees to kind of see where everybody's at or what the thinking is, but I would be prepared to make a motion if certainly if the discussion moves that direction, people would feel more comfortable if we did it in executive session.
Okay.
I certainly would be willing to make the motion that we amend the agenda and add the executive session.
But also, just keep in mind, we still have to vote in open session. It still would not be a secret for how we voted. We would still come back out here and have a
Absolutely.
vote and have a roll call vote.
My opinion on that, I would say, I do feel that we did set that precedent last meeting, as Madam Chair has mentioned, in open session. That being said, I would be willing to do executive session, under the caveat, though, that I would want us to, if we did go into executive session, I would also expect that discussion to include the compensation and contract as well. I don't feel that we would be best served going into executive session without, and then coming back out and then going back into executive session again to rediscuss the contract. That would just be my preference if there was an amendment.
Yeah, my understanding is Trustee Ash, it's in keeping with protocol that those things that are personnel matters would be discussed first in a special session. But I think that would be fair and appropriate to be able to do that.
To do what now?
In talking about these other matters and going into special session, that would be fine.
Executive session, you mean?
Executive session, yeah.
But I don't know, how would we have it as one executive session if we've got to make our decision, have a discussion, our decision about who we're going to choose, but then, depending on if it's Dr. Schulte or Dr. Vietti, those two different conversations will be very different. Because with Dr. Schulte, if it's Dr. Schulte, we are, he's already an employee, still have to set some terms, but I'm concerned about moving forward, how is it going to shift as far as other duties and things? Who's going to really step up and do these other things? Where if it's Dr. Vietti, it's a straight contract, these are the things.
I think we should have this in executive section. We should do what I thought we were going to do is interview Dr. Vietti, because I had not had a conversation with her before and knew nothing of her background. And to me, that was the purpose of this meeting. Now, in executive session, we can then talk about the differences between the two and which we prefer, and then come back out and vote. The financial package is something different.
Which would call for two executive sessions then.
That's fine with me.
So this is Jamie, and I concur that we should have an executive session. I think anytime that we're doing personnel or discussing personnel issues, that's something that we should deliberate in an executive session. And then we can come back out into the open session and then take our vote. I think it was my understanding, and I know that we have 3 areas that we're looking at, but this is an interview. And in most cases, we don't make a decision during the interview. And so I do think that we should go into executive session and deliberate and then make our decision from there. Thank you.
Okay. And will someone,
Just for a point of clarity, Madam Chair, and Greg, this is just a question to you. I know that, so I did motion to approve the agenda with Dr. Scruggs-Andreu as a second. Can I amend that?
With the second, its approval, you can.
Okay, so then I would like to amend my previous motion to include an executive session prior to number 4, discussion of the options.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any more questions?
And for clarity, that would be an executive session based on the personnel exception to the Open Meetings Act.
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Vietti, for your patience with us. At this time, will you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we will go into questions, and we will go around robin. To the trustees who are online, I didn't know if you wanted to participate in asking these 12 questions, or if you just wanted to listen.
I just want to listen.
Okay.
If I could just listen, that'd be fine. My internet's very questionable.
All right. Thank you both. All right. Dr. Vietti.
Well, I heard emphasis on a little bit about myself, so I will make it a little bit. You all have a copy of my resume in front of you, plus my guiding principles. I've been in public higher education for 47 years, primarily at the community college level. I served as president of Butler Community College for 17 years, then retired. Did not do well with retirement, so I came back as interim president of Emporia State University for 7 months, retired from that, then came back as interim president of Kansas City, Kansas Community College, retired from that, and most recently I served as interim president of Butler Community College for 6 months while it was conducting a search for its permanent new president. In addition to that background, I facilitate the Kansas Community College Leadership Institute. It's now entering its 12th year, and it was established because a group of presidents who had hair the color of mine were concerned about creating a pipeline of emerging leaders to step in when they retired. And so an advisory board was formed. We looked at programs in the state of Washington, the state of Iowa, and the state of Mississippi, and created the Institute. It has over 200 alumni, and it will enter its 12th year this August. And the way the process works, the presidents of the 19 community colleges can nominate anyone they wish from their institutions that they see leadership potential in. And then it is a 10-month session. We meet once a month typically on a Thursday afternoon, Thursday night, Friday morning. More recently, we have partnered with the Kansas Leadership Center out of Wichita, which has really boosted our curriculum, and every year we're in the process of continuous improvement. A little bit about me personally. I have 4 children, 3 of whom live in this area with their families in the Kansas City area, all within a 20-minute, 25-minute radius of one another. I have another son and his family who live in the Tulsa area. I have a 5th son who passed away as an adult in the Washington, D.C. area. So my hobbies include the community college mission. I love to read, I love to walk, and for any of you who know the Kansas City, Missouri area, I'm a Kansan through and through, but now I live 1 mile inside the state line. So I love to laugh loose, park, and most of all, I love to spend time with my family. You do have a copy of my guiding principles, and I would like to take a minute to read those to you because this is how I strive to lead. So I strive to treat every individual with dignity and respect and calmness. I strive to be truthful and true to self, since integrity and transparency matter always. I strive to be clear and timely with all decisions, messages, and responses. I strive to maintain a true open door, not one just in name only. I make an effort to think first, think again, and then act. I always seek an objective ear when there are sensitive decisions or messages to be communicated. I make every effort to engage in deep listening with both the head and the heart. And last, I work diligently to create a culture in which every person feels they belong. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I would be happy to entertain any questions you have of me, the easy ones and the hard ones.
Thank you, Dr. Vietti. We will start with questions with Trustee Ash.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Vitti, and again, welcome, and it's great to have you here. And most of all, thank you again for being willing to help advance the development of Kansas City, Kansas Community College. And so we appreciate you being available, and you're always ever all in and can do attitude and energy. I know you're pretty familiar with the college, and of course, as you said, relative to the KCCLI, you've had a number of our leaders cycle through and come through. I have presented at that institute a few times, and so I know the conversations and the discussions that take place as you look at case studies and just kind of different issues that are going on at the various 19 colleges throughout Kansas. And so I think you probably have a pretty good feel for where we are. And so the first question is, what do you see as the most urgent challenges facing KCKCC, particularly in the next 90, maybe to 120 days?
I believe one of the most critical things that the board needs to undertake is launching a national search for a permanent new president. As I have always understood, boards of trustees have one job, that's to hire the CEO. And I think there are, given KCKCC's reputation and its incredible potential, I think there are some highly skilled, either sitting presidents or aspiring vice presidents who would be interested in applying. But I think from my perspective, a national search is imperative numero uno for the board to undertake. As I understand, the board is relatively new in composition. Even when you add one new member to a board, it changes the dynamic. So I would urge the board to engage in professional development. I have a number of resources that I could recommend for that to take place. I understand you have a little thing like the higher. Is that an echo? You have some work to do with a higher learning commission, right? You have an assurance argument that is due, I believe, next year. And so it is critical that you make sure all your ducks are in order to get that done. And I do have experience with HLC. I served on that board for a number of years, but I've also been through more accreditations than I can count. I think onboarding the new president is crucial. I do think a review of your operations would be quite important, both your financial as well as your processes, your policies and procedures. One of the things that we undertook when I was interim president of Butler most recently was to develop a data booklet for the board so it could see at a glance comparative data regarding the institution's effectiveness compared to peers and its efficiencies compared to peers. So if the board does not have a data book like that, I would encourage the board to get one. So one last thing I would recommend is assessing your culture based on your most recent Noel Levins employee satisfaction surveys. Look at the trend data. There is always room to improve a culture, and we want the best possible culture for KCKCC that it can have, so faculty, staff, students, and the broader community can thrive. So that's
Thank
my
you.
checklist in the here and now.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Dr. Vietti. Thank you so much for coming today.
Hi.
This kind of goes off of a little bit of your data set mentioning to the board, but the question is really more around along the lines of, the boards that you've been working on. You work with a lot of governing boards. So what would you then believe is the proper relationship between the board and, in this case, an interim president, or I would also add the executive consultant role as well for the both that are being considered? What would you believe is the way that should interact with the board?
Okay, so when you refer to executive consultant, is that the same thing as the option regarding a strategic
I'm
partner?
sorry. Yes, I used it. I said the wrong name. I'm sorry.
No,
Oh,
clarity matters.
Yes, it
Yeah.
does. It does. The strategic
Definition
partner.
matters.
Yes.
So within the interim president role, I would see that individual working quite closely with the board to ensure those 90-day checklist things that I just ticked off get launched. I would recommend that the interim president and the board work on some strategic goals in the here and now, and set metrics and key performance indicators so you can assess progress towards those goals that matter. And fulfill all of the duties and responsibilities, frankly, that are listed in your president's job description, because I don't know why you would not expect an interim to fulfill all of those. Looking at it through the lens of a strategic partner, I would think that it would be quite important for the interim president and the strategic partner, whoever that would be, whether it's me or anyone else, and the board to agree on a scope of work that advances the institution. And I frankly don't believe that scope of work should be dictated. I think it should be mutually created based on the vantage point of each of the stakeholders involved. You know, Meg Wheatley, an author that I adore, says people own what they help create. And so you want the board to own it, you want the interim president to own it, and you want the strategic partner to own it. But beyond that, you want the faculty and staff to own it.
Thank you so much.
Dr. V, I'll let you get your drink of water there. Wait.
Thank you, so I don't get cotton mouth, right?
Right. Dr. Vietti, you previously served at this college as interim president. What lessons from that experience would influence your leadership today?
One of the most important lessons I learned was the passion that faculty, staff, and students have for this institution. And frankly, that was rivaled by what's said in here stays in here, right? No, teasing. But it's palpable, it's measurable. The people here associated with KCK truly, truly believe in the mission and the vision. So that was a key takeaway for me, to see the depth and breadth of the support for this wonderful college. When I stepped into the role, the culture was not as positive as it could have, should have been, and culture eats strategy for lunch. So another lesson was that you can't dictate culture, and it doesn't happen overnight. But if everyone can pull together to define the kind of culture in which everyone can thrive, great things can happen. So, and the third lesson I learned was there is so much potential for KCKCC. I believe there are untapped opportunities yet to be tapped, and it can be a very exciting time for the incoming new president. It can be an exciting time for the interim president or the strategic partner. So those are key lessons.
All right, thank you.
Dr. Vietti, what has changed at Kansas City, Kansas Community College since your last service here? And how would those changes affect your approach?
Let's talk physically, visually first. I love the artwork. I love the creation of spaces where students and faculty and staff can gather. I love the classrooms that are no longer tables and rows with hard chairs. Technology has been a major boon. I think your partnerships with Panasonic, as an example, and Amazon have been awesome. And I think there are more partnerships to be held. But I will go back to culture, for a minute. And my understanding is your Noel Levitt's employee satisfaction surveys are not where they could and should be. And so that, again, would be a key area of focus, not for me, whether it's strategic partner or interim president, but for the board and president's cabinet to ask the why questions and the so what can we do about this?
Thank you.
Last but not least, right?
Yeah. Oh, Dr. Vietti, it was really nice, really nice to meet you and speak with you. I appreciate the not only your experience, but the passion, clearly the passion that you have, and the values that you hold as important, that you bring to the table. I think it's very good. You know, you're talking about mutually created situations, and something that's really talked about a lot here is shared governance, the importance of just working together collaboratively. I think that's great, and I appreciate that's a value that you hold highly. This is a great question. What strengths do you see in KCKCC that may be underappreciated by the community?
Wow. I need a minute to think about that. I think KCKCC has a better opportunity to tell its story, and not just from data. You know, data only goes so far, but what touches people most is the human story. So the better KCKCK can do about conveying the incredible stories of students who have succeeded against all odds, students who have come here, brilliant students, because they wanted to start here first. So I think that is one opportunity. Never answer a question if you don't know what's what. So I'm going to speculate for a minute. I don't know what the overall level of engagement of faculty, staff, and students is in the Kansas City, Kansas service area, if you will, but that could be an opportunity to heighten the face of KCKCC and help people understand the intrinsic as well as the extrinsic value of this very special community college. I think we have an incredible opportunity with the opening of the downtown center to maximize that potential. I don't know if you have a pro forma for that. If you don't, I'd recommend you get one. But boy, the potential there could be great if you find ways to maximize that effectively.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Oh, I thought we were done.
Oh, no. You got a long way to go.
Oh. Well, hopefully before dinner, right?
Okay, well, I think your final comments there are a good segue into this next question, which is, so how would you help maintain public confidence in the college during this transition time as we search for a new permanent president?
Well, I have heard Trustee Sutton reference this, but I've also heard the rest of you reference it, transparency. You know, when you launch the search for the new president, it's key that you have community members involved. It's key that you have transparent processes so people within and without the institution know what processes you're going to follow to lead to that final decision. And I think whether whoever is the interim president, whether it's Patrick or whether it's me or someone else, I think that individual must be transparent with the board, transparent with faculty, staff, students, and the broader community. It is a transition period, and I think we have to admit that. I think the board has to admit that. But you also have to exude the confidence to the broader community and the internal one that you know what you're doing. And you know how to manage this transition working in concert with either the interim president, whoever that would be.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I ask a quick follow-up to that? There was something she said I
Absolutely.
thought that was really good to
Absolutely.
add on to. You mentioned about community members involved, and there's so I have a question with that, and I'd just be curious your perspective. In your mind, then, do you think of something in the sense of like a community advisory board that certain community leaders would have the opportunity to apply to be on, to then listen in on specific things for that? I know we have kind of discussions about doing a more mixed search committee that's going to be, faculty and board members and things like that. But in terms of the community side, I'm interested in what your vision of that was.
Well, having just come off Butler's very successful search process, in my biased view, the process was as pure as the driven snow. Everyone knew what the steps were. And it was I want to say it was a 21-member search committee, and you might be going, oh my. But there were actual community members. They were not advisory. They sat on the search committee, and I would recommend that. But the other way you can get community input is by, when you get to this finalist, you can schedule community forums so anyone in the community who is interested can come and meet with any of the candidates. And again, going back to my Butler experience, there were feedback forms. We're in the age of the QR code, so people would scan the QR code and fill out a survey, and it was really pretty simple. So literally anyone who wanted input into to the search committee's deliberative process could provide it.
That's a very interesting take. Thank you. I appreciate that. My next question then is, again, along the lines of the community as a whole. I mean, you're well aware of how much KCKCC impacts the community and the value, not just as a board, but that I hope much of the community sees that this community college does bring to the community. So with that, then, what roles in your mind should KCKCC play in the continued workforce development and economic growth in Wyandotte County? And then, just an add-on would be any specific thing in mind from your perspective as we build things out like the downtown campus.
Well, I think workforce development and economic development are pillars of the community college mission. And so I would expect KCKCC to have talented, visionary representatives on any workforce board, any economic development board, any chamber of commerce that they could. So I believe it's imperative for KCKCC to be omnipresent, if you will, and it can't just be one person doing it all. There are a lot of talented people here, and if you match passion and purpose, then everyone becomes the face of the college.
Just one follow-up comment from that. I think that was, in the previous administration in the college, there was one or two faces represented. And I think that that's something that I know will be an exciting change. So I love that you bring that up, because I think that is also just a really, again, something that seems obvious, but you don't really think of it until you hear it, right? So thank you so much.
Well, and the flip side of that, you have so many talented faculty and staff and students at KCKCK. It creates opportunities for them to become recognized and to become a very, very skilled faces of the college. So one person can't do it all.
Thank you.
Dr. Vietti, you know, our relationships with the local school districts is important. So what would you do to strengthen those relationships with the local school districts, local employers, and community partners?
I don't know what the baseline data is, so I would want to look at the baseline data. First of all, when I was here in my interim stint way back when, we developed what I viewed to be a very positive relationship with KCK Public Schools. But I think, again, you've got to be engaged. And it cannot be a one-way street. We, the college, has to listen deeply to what the needs of each of those entities are that you just mentioned, and then collaboratively, not us saying, here's how we'll meet your needs, but collaboratively, we need to identify how to meet the needs.
Thank you.
Dr. Vietti, how would you prepare Kansas City, Kansas Community College, what do you consider the most important characteristics of a healthy college culture?
I think it's one in which everyone has a sense of belonging, and everyone believes that their voices are heard and they have something of value to offer to the mission and vision of the college.
Thank you.
So as you were talking, we are at the precipice of a national presidential search. It's a very important thing, very big deal. And so along that line, how would you prepare KCKCC for the search and for onboarding for the next president?
Well, I would make sure you had the right search firm hired. And spinning it back from that, I would urge the board, well, I would encourage the board to direct the interim president to identify options of search firms. I would encourage the board to then interview 2 or 3 of the firms. And there are several out there that are really good. And then I would encourage the interim president to be involved in the search process and to stay a bit longer after the new president comes on board. I did that at Butler. When I was offered the interim position, I said yes, but I want to be on the search committee. And I recommended highly that even after the start date of the new president, that person and I had at least a 2-week window of opportunity, which turned out from that, her feedback was very helpful to her.
Very good, thank you.
All right.
Are there more?
We're getting close to the end.
Well, I might need more water.
2 more, all right? And Jeffrey and I promise to be gentle, okay? So what information and groundwork would you want to leave for your eventual successor, let's say in the interim president's role?
Well, I mentioned the data books, and I brought those, but I think it would be quite important for the incoming president to understand, comparative data regarding your efficiencies and your effectiveness. I think it would be imperative for the incoming president to have a working knowledge of your operating budget, and also of your policies and procedures. And I don't know what the status of those are. Are they current? I hope they are. If not, then that would be work for the interim president. And I would want the incoming president to understand HLC and where you are in that process, but beyond that, to be thoroughly grounded in your most recent site visit and any follow-up requirements. So that's a starting point.
Yeah,
I'm sure I could think of more
yes. Okay.
if you gave me time.
I'm not going to, so we can get finished, so I'm passing it on to Jeff.
Yeah, I think this will be a pretty easy one. Out of the sake of not making it too easy, I will take out the obvious needing to search for a new president. So, besides searching for a new president, if selected for either role, what would your top 3 priorities be during your first 6 months?
To secure a highly trained expert to come in and conduct a board retreat, to have a thorough understanding of the operating budget, and I did mention a pro forma for the Kansas City Downtown Center, so I would want to make sure that I understood that. I didn't mention this before, but I would review the organizational structure of the college in concert with President's Cabinet. And together we would answer the question of whether that is the optimal structure to drive effectiveness and efficiencies. And I mentioned this before, but I would dive into the Noel Levitt student satisfaction surveys because I think you have opportunities to improve your culture.
Thank you so much.
I have another question. First, I would like to say I have been impressed by your presence here and your responses to the questions. I would like to know if you are open to either interim president or strategic partner, and if so, which do you prefer?
You know, I sat down before I came in and I did the pros and cons of both. I personally believe either could work. So it's the call of the board to determine which could better serve the institution. But I think Trustee Ash mentioned this earlier. I'm an eternal optimist, and whichever role you would think would be suitable for me, I would make it work. If it were the strategic partner, and I did mention this earlier, I would want a clearly defined scope of work that was collaboratively developed in concert with the board and with the sitting interim president. But I do believe either could work.
But your preference is?
Oh my gosh. I think, way to put me on the spot. I think.
You're on the spot.
Well, that's true. Yeah, but the seat hasn't gotten hot yet. Now it's getting hot. I think the simpler course of action is to name an interim president and then get busy and launch a national search. So that would be my preference.
The interim president, is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Good call.
Dr.
Yeah,
Vietti.
I would
go
say
on.
one other thing. I'm sorry.
Oh, please go ahead.
Go on.
You know, you have an acting president now, right?
Right.
If you name an interim president other than he, it creates the opportunity for him to apply for the permanent presidency. But it is not typically not a best practice to allow an interim or acting president to apply. And to be perfectly clear, if I were named interim president, I have no interest in applying for the permanent presidency.
Yes. Dr. Vietti, these were not questions, but I know we need to know this information. If you are selected, when can you start? And I'm thinking probably like before, we would need you for a year. Can you commit to a year with this college?
I haven't thought about it in terms of a year, Trustee Sutton. I really believe if you launched a national search within the next month, you could have a new president in place by January. I really believe that. But if it turned out to be a year, I don't walk away from things I have started.
Yes. And a start date, I mean, if,
What start date? I forgot that. I would have to look at my calendar, but hopefully sooner than later. And
Okay.
Today's July 7th, so I'm just throwing it out there, August 1.
okay,
But I do want, in the vein of full transparency, I want the board to know I have a commitment that I will not walk away from, and that's the Kansas Community College Leadership Institute. So once a month, I would be out of pocket for a couple of days. And then I have a couple of other meetings that I would need to step away from, but that's not atypical for
Yeah.
an interim president.
well, and that's understandable. Thank you. Vice Chair Kump, you had something?
You have addressed that, so no further question from my perspective.
Okay. We had it on the agenda just so that it wouldn't seem like a surprise, and so I know we've probably taken up more time, but I do want to open it up because we do have some employees here, and I was told that some may want to make comments. And when we talk about transparency and shared governance, I think it's important to hear from employees. Is there anyone who wanted to make a comment or had a question? Just please state your name and your department where you work, I believe would be sufficient. Is there anyone?
So I'm whoop. I'm figuring this out. Sorry about that. I'm Ed Kramer. I'm the Dean of Math, Science, Business, and Technology. It's my pleasure to serve as the Interim Vice President of Academic Affairs underneath Dr. Vietti, and I would highly recommend that you follow the mechanism she's lined out, the questions she's responded to here. I think she'd be great. I think Patrick's an amazingly good CFO and has done a tremendous job as acting president. But I think having double roles, triple roles, however many roles he's got right now, are a lot and people. And I think that having a dedicated person in that role of interim president is critical. So whichever choice you make, you have two good candidates that you're choosing from. My preference would be for Dr. Vietti to come in and do that, because I would like Patrick to consider the permanent position later, but that's just a bias on my part as well. So, but I really do believe that Dr. Vietti is an amazing person to work under and brings a great amount of culture development to the college, and will serve in that role and capacity extremely well, and will help KCKCC, which is a great place, and I want to see that moving forward too. So,
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you, Dr. Kramer. Is there anyone else? Okay.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Linda Warner. I'm the Director of Counseling and Advocacy here, 11-year employee and a 30-year resident of Wyandotte County, taxpayer. Hi, board. Dr. Vietti, welcome. It's so good to have you back with us. I hope you're selected for the position. My question is not so much for you, but just to encourage the board to pick an interim president whose full job is interim president, because there's a lot to what that person needs to do. And coming in with a fresh set of eyes to see us again, I think is helpful. I've also seen what it's like when a full-time employee takes on extra duty, and no matter how hard they work in juggling those balls, it is tremendously challenging. I think an interim president's big role with you is to help continue to develop the board, and this board is a board in transition. With new leadership coming on. So I hope that you will hire Dr. Vietti as our interim president. She did a great job last time. Staff have a lot of belief and faith in her.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Ms. Warner. I see someone else was waiting there, and
Hello, I am Christine White. I am Executive Director of Institutional Effectiveness. I have one question that seems to be a bit glaring that wasn't addressed. If you would be selected as the interim president, who then is the strategic partner for the board? Because as Linda just mentioned, job of interim president is going to be full-time. And you do have other obligations as well. How do you balance that with also a potential, even though you're not interested in the position, but you still report to the board, and they are still technically your boss, you might say, how do you advise them in that capacity? That is my question.
Thank you. I think it goes back to the position description for the president. And so from my vantage point, the interim president adopts the position description for the president and acts in the capacity of president until the interim is hired. And it would negate the need for a strategic partner unless Patrick were named interim president or continued as acting president while also fulfilling the CFO role. And then there is a need, in my opinion, for support for him and for the board in the form of a strategic partner.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Probably take one more. I think that's fair, one more, okay.
One more. Make it a good one.
I will. I'm Dr. Jack Henderson. I'm the Executive Director for Workforce Innovation. I'll be very transparent. In my world, I've lost some relationships because of the leadership transition. They've gone blank on me. So my question to you, if you're hired as the interim president, what would you do to kind of help us restore some of those partnerships?
Well, first of all, I would want to visit with you about what partnerships we have lost and why we have lost them. But going back to the position description of the president, it is critical, even if it's an interim president, to be highly visible. And I would rely on you to tell me who within the college, including me, you would get to tell me where to go. But you would also help me figure out who the best representative is to deal with the partnerships we've lost. Perhaps you and I calling on them together. But it would also be important to work with you to identify potential new partnerships and who best should drive those. You know, the analogy I'll use is with the foundation and my experience with the foundation board and its executive director has always been, you tell me where you want me to be as you are cultivating relationships and donors and going to ask for support.
All right, okay. Thank you. This concludes the interview and the questions from the employees. We appreciate you being here. That shows that you care and that you are interested. At this time, the board needs to go into an executive session to have a discussion. This would be just the board and the attorney, a discussion on choosing how this transition will take place. An interim with a strategic partner or just an interim. May I have, and how much time do you think we need? Probably, board, me.
I did have a question, Madam Chair. I do apologize.
Okay.
Could we do a 1-minute executive session with Dr. Schulte present? Or can we do
What you could do is if you could go in for the personnel exception and invite him back for the beginning of the executive
And then-
session and excuse him.
I would request that we do
Okay.
that if possible.
Okay, so that's added to the motion. Can you, I didn't quite hear all of that.
Yep, the motion would still be to go into executive session under the personnel exception. And I think you indicated to include myself and also Dr. Schulte. And then you would excuse Dr. Schulte at whatever time the board's finished discussing with him. And then, I don't know what time amount you want for the whole executive session, but you need to state that as well.
So
Yes.
30 minutes?
How much?
30,
Oh, no. For this first part?
probably max?
Probably 15
I was
minutes.
thinking 15.
15 minutes?
Yeah. Well, Madam Chair, if you're okay with the way as presented by for Greg, then I'll say I motion to go into executive session, then with our attorney Greg Goheen and Dr. Schulte for the beginning.
Second?
Okay,
Have a-
one clarification. With possible action to follow, or you want to hold the action till?
With possible action to follow.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, we
Good
will
with that,
need
Alex?
action to follow before we could
Yes,
have another executive session.
Correct.
Okay?
agreed.
So I have a motion and a second to go into executive session for the purpose of discussion our interim president with our attorney and Dr. Schulte present for the first part of it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We will allow time for the board to transition to the boardroom, and then we will start our executive session.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your patience. Good afternoon. May I have a motion to return back to open session?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. May I have a motion to return to executive session to continue discussing the same topic for 10 minutes?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The board will go back to the executive session for 10 more minutes to continue discussing the topic. Thank you for your patience. May I have a motion to return us back to open session, please?
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to return to open session. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries. We are going to be taking a vote here, a motion. But first, we have two that are online, and we think we've lost contact with them. So if you could give us a minute to see if we can reconnect. But we're back in open session if you want to change that on the screen. Yeah. So, there's Joe, okay. Okay,
Did I make it back in?
okay.
She's still messaging.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, Trustee Johnson is at a conference out of town, and so she's trying to get back on. So if you give us just a minute here, Vice Chair is talking with her.
Not hearing anything, Madam Chair, if you'd like to, if you're open to it, I can make a motion for action to move forward if you'd like.
Yes, and maybe she'll get on, but for now, yes, if you want to make a motion.
I would like to make a motion that we contract with Dr. Vietti to be interim president of KCKCC.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to hire Dr. Vietti as our interim president. We will now have a roll call vote.
Trustee Ash?
Yes.
Trustee Cahar?
Yes.
He looks frozen on the
Yeah, he
screen.
looks he's frozen.
Chair
Yes.
Hoskin Sutton?
Yes.
Trustee Johnson? Vice Chair Kump?
Yes.
Trustee Sanchez? Trustee Scruggs on through you.
Yes.
5.
Okay. The motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Now our next,
Congratulations.
congratulations. Now our next step is to go back into executive session for the purpose of discussing with Dr. Vietti her contract, term of contract, start date, salary, and then we will come back and vote. Again, is that, we need to take a vote that we're accepting her contract or?
Potentially.
Potential,
vote.
okay. All right, and so in this executive session, our attorney will go back with us. We will also have Dr. Vietti and our Chief Human Resource Officer, Ms. Lorraine Mixon-Page, and our Board Secretary, Cheryl Brunell. May I have a motion to excuse to executive session?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to go to executive session. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. We will go to executive, oh, I forgot to say a time. We probably need to take, do we need to take 30 minutes for this at least? And that way we should get it all done. So an executive session for 30 minutes. We will give the board time to travel to the executive boardroom.
Be here all night.
May I have a motion to come?
Move that we go back into open session.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to return to open session. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. The board, I talked with Dr. Vietti, and the contract will be finalized and will be voted on at our regular board meeting in 2 weeks on July 21st. And Dr. Vietti, we just have one more thing that we want to discuss, but if we thank you for your time, and we look forward to working with you again.
Well, thank you for putting your trust in me. I am honored to come back to a college that I fell in love with almost 10 years ago. So I look forward to working with each of you.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay.
You too.
There's one more thing on the agenda, and it is just for informational purposes. I don't know, as new trustees, if you are aware that each year the board does an annual self-evaluation of itself, and within that, there's several things on here, and you're going to be receiving this, and I just wanted to make you aware of it so that when you get it, take some time to look through it and to evaluate honestly how you think we are doing as a board, because there's always room for growth. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. And in fact, I want to thank Cheryl for bringing it to my attention, because if you look in the handbook, in the trustee handbook, it's listed in June that the board begins its self-evaluation process. But I can tell you, in the time that I've been on this board, it's been different dates and it's varied. So again, that's something else that the board can discuss, is when do we really want this process to start in the future. That's all I have. Are there any questions regarding the board self-evaluation?
No, I just want to publicly comment and say that Chair Austin Sutton has done an incredible job throughout this whole process, and just thank you again for leading us through this.
Thank you. And thank you. And it takes teamwork. We're growing and we're getting to know each other. And I think more than anything is transparency and agreeing to disagree and not falling out about things. That goes a long way. And so if we can do that, respect each other, respect the opinions, we're going to be okay. We made a lot of progress tonight, and thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you for for all that each one of you do. Is there anything else? If not, may I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn this special meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. The meeting is adjourned. See you in 2 weeks.